Hey, what's up, folks? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction. We're going to be breaking down UFC 235 from Las Vegas, Nevada, as Jon Jones is back again. So happy to see this guy fighting so soon after his last fight, as he faces off against Anthony Lionheart Smith, with Tyron Woodley against Kamaru Usman as your co-main event. And overall, I think it's a really good card. Actually, I've seen some people say the card's not that good. I don't agree with that whatsoever. We've got Zabit, Cody Garbrandt on there. He's a former champion. There's just good fights. I'm looking forward to the prelims. I think I've got some good matchups. So overall, I think it's a really good, and the debut of Ben Askren. I'm looking forward to seeing how that kind of goes down. So, yeah, coming off UFC Prague, I'm kind of struggling with picks, I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of making some weird picks, and maybe I'm not really going with my gut as much as I was. And like I said before, I think through the week my picks seem to change. Like last week was Klidson de Abreu. As the fight week went on, I just wasn't feeling him whatsoever. That's why I didn't bet him. So I need to try and pick that up and get better at that. And I'm hoping it starts this weekend. Had great wins betting wise again. So I'm not picking as many fights as I would like, right? But I'm picking the right fights to win bets on. So, yeah. Also, just one last thing. Shout out to Newsome MMA. If you've not, I always get people hitting me up. If you got this tape, can you find this fight? Can you find that fight? And it's hard. Sometimes you find it, sometimes you don't. But if you go to newsomemma.com, they've got a tape index there where it's got a load of fights on there that you can find. Maybe you're struggling to find some fights. They will have an index at every fighter you have in the card, and you can go ahead and watch some fights there. So go and check that out. So shout out to Newsome and Lock of the Night for that one. They do a great job with it. So yeah, let's get into this card and try not be here all night. So we're going to start off in the women's strawweight division with Polyana Viana against Hannah Cifers. Tell you what, this is a rough kind of fight to even look at picking here. It's not one I'm overly confident in. You've got someone in Polyana Viana who's striking, I don't think is that great, but yet a ground game is. I think at Hannah Cifers, his striking is actually okay. But I don't really think she's a UFC fighter. In fact, I wouldn't really class either of these girls as really being a UFC fighter. Hannah Cifers coming off a beating against Macy Barber. Polyana Viana's coming off that loss to Gigi Aldridge, which she was a massive favourite in that fight, and I bet Gigi Aldridge, and I think she was plus 260, I want to say. And that was a good one to pull out the bag, and she got outclassed in that one. Hannah Cifers just got beat up. And the poor girl's like really awkward to watch in interviews before that. She's very, very shy. And it's just, I just don't think at a time it was the right time for her really to be in the UFC. The way I see the fight going, Hannah, I think, is the better striker. Polyana is definitely the better ground specialist out of the two. I think Polyana can live with Hannah on the feet a little bit, where I don't think Hannah can really stay that long on the bottom on the mat. So, like I say, it's not a fight I've looked hugely into. It's a coin flip fight, in my opinion. Could go either way. Would it surprise me if Hannah Cifers won? No. Would it surprise me if Viana won? Lost? No. So I'll go Polyana Viana. I think that the line's a little bit big as well. I think she'll get it to the ground. I think she'll just be the better person on the ground. I'll go Polyana Viana. Plus, she's moved her team to American Top Team, so she's actually training with a lot better girls now than she was in Brazil, and that's got to help out as well. So I'll go Polyana Viana to win via submission, maybe late 2, early 3, if not a fairly dominant decision. Moving on, Marlon Chito Vera against Frankie Saenz. Not a matchup that really kind of jumps out at me too much. I think that I kind of struggled to pick a winner on this one, if I'm being honest with you as well. Marlon Chito Vera is a bigger betting favourite. I haven't got the odds up. I just took them down actually, but I don't think he should. In fact, let me go and actually bring up the odds. I think it's minus 220, which I'm a little bit shocked that it's that high of a favourite. Let me see. Minus 210. We have the comeback on Frankie Saenz is plus 175. I don't think that plus 175 is actually a bad bet if you're looking at dogs this card. Marlon's a slow starter. It's something that he's always shown. The Welli Buram was a clear fight there where you can see he's a slow starter. He's had that in the past and he's came strong in the end. Even his bigger fights against better guys like your Douglas Silva, Andrade, and John Lineker, he started off very slow, got really beat up in a couple of those rounds, but then the third round, I think maybe both of those fights there. So he comes on late. He's obviously going to have to look for the wrestling of Frankie Saenz. He's a guy that comes out of Arizona with a good kind of wrestling pedigree. Cheeto is definitely the better fighter on the feet. I think he does leave openings though. I don't think Frankie's the kind of guy that's going to really take advantage with his hands or his kicks. With that, I think he's going to look to kind of strike to move into a clinch position to look for a takedown, where I think he could get takedowns, but he has to be careful because Cheeto is a bit dangerous on the ground, very kind of opportunistic. Like I say, I'm not overly confident in the Cheeto in this one, but I'm not confident enough to really pick Frankie Saenz. I think over the 15 minutes, I think Cheeto could do the more damage if he doesn't get taken down, and I think he will have an advantage on the feet. So ultimately, I'm going to pick Marlon Cheeto Vera, but not confident really at all. Gina Mazany, Macy Chiason's on next. I'm seeing people like super hyped about Macy Chiason and thinking she's easy money here. And she could be, because Gina Mazany is nothing special, if we're being honest. Not one of the greater fighters of the division. But Macy's making the move down to 135 for the first time. That's always sketchy. Gina's hard to put out. People have been writing her off before against, I think it was Wu Yanan. They were writing her off and she came in there and won that fight. Macy was obviously in the latest season of Ultimate Fighter where she was definitely a 145 and she beat a load of girls, natural probably bantamweights, moving up to 145. So she had an advantage there. She did very well against Pani Kianzad, beat her up pretty badly in the finale. It got the finish. Comes from a really great team in Texas at Fortis MMA. But she's still very, very young in her career. Gina Mazany, who, I mean, she's been around a little bit longer. She's I want to say she's 7-2 as a record. I thought she was more than that, 5-2. Yeah, she's had 7 fights. That's what I was thinking. With her 2 losses coming to Sarah McMahon and Lena Landsberg. I was at the Liverpool fight. It wasn't a great fight, actually. Halfway through that fight, I went and got myself a hot dog because it was just the right time to go and get a hot dog during that fight, which I think was good timing. She's a hard-nosed fighter. She takes a lot of punishment. She's got striking deficiencies. She gets hit a lot. I think she can get taken down a lot. I'm not super confident in Macy, but I'm more confident she wins the fight than what Gina can. But if Gina was to... If the weight cut was to maybe take hold of Macy Chiasson a little bit, then maybe Gina comes into it late. But it's a hard fight for me to see any confidence. I'm not confident in... I think Macy is the better fighter, but Gina's maybe more experience is going to help her out. Not that much more experience, but if it's not a fight I'm not really too invested in, I'll pick Macy Chiasson to win via maybe a late stoppage, if not a decision. But the drop down to 135 kind of concerns me a little bit. I want to see what she's like here. A lot of people are hyping this girl up as a big prospect in that division. I don't see it at all. I'll pick her to win this fight, though. The main fight of your UFC Fight Pass prelims, we have Edmen Shahbazyan against Charles Byrd. And this is an interesting fight, actually. Edmen's last fight, I picked Darren Stewart actually to beat him. And this was another one of those fights I was talking about at the start here where you like a fight, you watch a fight, and then as the week goes on, you kind of change your feelings on it. That's how I felt with the Edmen Shahbazyan fight against Darren Stewart. Once it got into those like Wednesday, Thursday, early Friday, I really liked Edmen. I thought, and it was just, I heard a few things, I seen a few more things, and I thought he fought a pretty good fight against Darren Stewart, who was very confident coming off a couple of wins, got a load of takedowns in that fight, I believe. I think he got about 10 of them off the top of my head. I remember reading that earlier on today, where he got taken down a couple of times himself. Big guy for the division. He's got a big frame, and it looks decent. The 2 fights that you've seen, I think it was, I can't remember who it was he faced on the Antonio Jones, I want to say his name was, I think, on the Dana White show, and he handled him accordingly. Darren Stewart, I mean, that's a tough fight to come into the UFC facing someone like Darren Stewart, who's, like I said, full of confidence, coming off a couple of stoppages as well. And it's just a kind of hard guy to face. And he fought a really good fight. Got a load of takedowns passed, gassed out pretty bad towards the end, started taking some shots, which worries me a little bit. Put a lot into those grappling exchanges and really took out him towards the end. So I think he needs to really... I think that's something he needs to work on, honestly. I think his hands are pretty decent. A lot of his finishes are by TKO, but now you're making your step up into the UFC and you're going to be fighting better fighters every time. Or I don't want to say better fighters. I think Darren Stewart's maybe a little bit better than Charles Byrd, but I think it's the right kind of matchup for him. But I think Charles Byrd's a live dog in this fight. I think that if he can stay composed, pick his shots right, try and not get taken down, get those underhooks in, because I think that Edmen from the get-go is going to want to strike a little bit, but then he's going to want to tie him up and try and get him to the ground where he's got a big frame. He's definitely the bigger guy here, height-wise. Might have a strength advantage, but Charles, a wily veteran, he's had like 15 fights. He's like I say, he's in the UFC now. He's got a UFC win under his in his record, and he's got a finish as well over John Phillips, which is not really saying all that much, if I'm being honest with you, but especially via submission. But he's still a really, really experienced fighter, and had bigger, I don't want to say bigger fights, but he's had more meaningful fights than what Edmen really has. He came up through the regionals fighting guys with not great records. But some people are hyping him up. I've seen Twitter actually today. Today was my day off work, and I've seen some people really gassing this guy up and saying he's going to be really good. And there's just not enough. I've not seen enough to really warrant where he is. I know he's a minus 125 favourite right now. That the money's coming in Charles Byrd. I'm not sure about this one. My initial pick was Edmen. But I think that Charles Byrd's a live dog. But I see both guys gassing out, and that kind of worries me a little bit. So I'm not sure. I'll go Edmen via a decision, but I'm not. I think that this might be one of these fights later on in the week where I might change my mind a little bit, and Charles Byrd might be someone, especially I might have a little shot in DraftKings if he's cheap enough. And saying that the DraftKings, if it's an even money fight, then he'll not be that cheap. He'll be around that mid range. But I'll go Edmen Shahbazyan. I think he'll get takedowns. I think he might grind him a little bit and he'll win it. But I think Charles has got an opportunity to win this fight. Moving on into prelims here, welterweight division with Diego Nightmare Sanchez against Mickey Gall. And I'm going to come out straight away and say I'm picking Diego Sanchez here. The betting line for this is crazy to me. I'll say it now as well. I'm going to bet Diego Sanchez this week. I'm just going to wait and see what the line gets. He's plus 280 something over here in the UK. I checked earlier on. How does Mickey Gall warrant being that much of a favourite when he's had next to little fights in his career? I mean, the experience that Diego's got. Now, I know he's shot-born, but Mickey Gall's had 6 fights. Majority of them in the UFC, which is a big thing. And he's only lost the one fight, and that was to Randy Brown, and that's not really a good look on your record. But George Sullivan doesn't really ring out as a good win to me. He's another guy that's went out on the regional scene since getting cut by the UFC, and he's lost fights. So, yeah, Sage Northcutt, it's not a bad win. I think that'll end up being a good win in his record when both guys call it a day. CM Punk and Mike Jackson can't really take that for anything. And I put a tweet out today thinking I was going to be in the minority of people that are picking Diego Sanchez, but it looks like a lot of people are picking Diego Sanchez here, and I can see why. The one thing that Mickey, I think, is really good at is his jiu-jitsu game. I think he's got a really solid jits game, but he is definitely starting to progress his striking. He's moved out to LA, I think, to the Muscle Farm complex, works with Joe Schilling. So he's striking in his hands. I think Eve Edwards is another guy he's working with. So having that nice experienced guy, I think, is definitely going to help. He could be one of these fighters that you see every fight that makes massive improvements, and you could see that with his hands this time. I don't think it takes much to hurt Diego Sanchez anymore. I think that if you can catch him with clean strikes, you can hurt him. But there are certain types of matchups that I think you should target Diego Sanchez. Last time out, he was a plus 200 favourite against Craig White. I could not believe that. I bet Diego in that one. And he came through pretty easily, actually. And I saw that in the past with Marcin Held. There's just certain matchups that I think he has better opportunities to win. Marcin Held is a really good jiu-jitsu guy, very opportunistic in every aspect on the ground. And he never really put Diego in any danger. Diego's got a solid ground game himself. Never been submitted. If you go out on YouTube, there is jiu-jitsu matches where he had Marcelo Garcia on his back, fully on his back, and managed to shake him off. So Diego's ground game is pretty legit, very good. You know he's going to keep going hard for 15 minutes. I just think he needs to be careful in the feet. I think if he gets hit with a kind of clean shot, that could really take him out. A couple of years ago, actually, I thought that Diego was done when Joe Lozon started. When he kind of cracked that chin, the chin that people were saying that he was never kind of really going to go down. He was taking a lot of damage. He went down. Ali Quinta knocked him out. Mark Brown knocked him out. So there is definitely clean shots. If he gets hit with a clean shot, he'll go down. I just don't think Mickey Gall's got the striking to really do that. And when it comes to the grappling and the wrestling and the tenacity of Diego Sanchez, I absolutely think he can win this fight. And that's why I'm confident to pick him in this fight. I just think that it's a massive experience difference. I think Diego's still a tough fighter to face. I don't think he's going to give up positions very easily. I think he's going to fight for everything like he does. And I think Mickey's going to really, if Mickey comes through this one and he makes it look good, then you will start to see that he's making big differences in his game. I'm looking forward to seeing if he does that, because Diego is a huge matchup for him, experience-wise. But I'm confident in picking Diego Sanchez here. I think that I'm kind of saying that, but I am sitting here thinking, right, Mickey Gall, he's definitely making improvements, but is he making improvements to beat someone like Diego Sanchez yet? I think give him a year, 18 months down the line, he would walk through Diego. But I still think that he can 10 with him on the ground. I think that Diego's just going to keep it going for 15 minutes. And Mickey Gall, if he can't find a submission, he's going to really struggle in this fight. I just cannot believe the betting line in this. It's worth the shot. And if you're getting close to plus 300, 3-1 odds, a guy who's like 5 or 6 fights and the fighters he's been fighting. And I know, like I say, Diego is definitely on that decline. But there are certain matchups I think he can look good in. And this is one that he can definitely look good in. So I'm going to go Diego Sanchez. I'm going to get him to win via decision. I say this every time, Diego is my favourite fighter. Not that means much. But like I say, there's certain fights that he can win, and he can definitely win this one. So Diego via a UD in that one there. Moving on, bantamweight division. We have Cody Stamann against Alejandro Perez. Now, this is a really interesting fight, and one that I've kind of looked at quite closely. Cody is a guy I really like. I think that he's got a really solid game, a short, stocky, compact 135er. Not the biggest, not the best reach, but he's got a good gas tank. He's got very good wrestling. He's got very good timing, and ultimately just come up against the guy who's making massive strides himself in Aljamain Sterling last time out and got caught with that knee bar, which looked horrific. Pulled all types of muscle in his leg. He's back 6 months later, which is interesting. It'll be interesting to hear how that leg is. I'll need to watch. I think James Lynch did some interviews, so I'll need to actually go and check them out when I get a chance this week. But a couple of great wins on his record. Brian Caraway, Tom Duquesnoy won those via split. And then you look at someone like Perez, estimated guy for the division, wins fight, maybe fighting your Winelands and who else? Alcantaras, who are definitely, a few years ago, they were better back then. Matthew Lopez is not a bad win. Cirkunov is, we know what Cirkunov's all about. Hits big, but it hasn't got a great fight IQ. If the fights are close, this guy seems to steal rounds. He's one of those guys that is really hard to look good against. I think there is definitely opportunities for Cody Stamann to take this guy to the ground, and I think that should be his main aspect in this fight here, because Alejandro, he's got a fairly decent output. He's a guy that is, he's an awkward guy to look good against. They're always close fights, but he always just does enough. There's rounds that you think he could be losing when he's actually winning. He's one of those fighters that just the judges seem to take a lot of stock in, and that's something you have to kind of keep your eye on. I've picked against him in the past, underestimate him maybe a little bit, and that comes back to biting the backside. But yeah, like I say, fairly decent takedown defense. The only one that was kind of really showed out was who was it? Quinones took him down, and I think it was a Matthew Lopez that sticks in my head from watching, where they got him down numerous times. But again, he still went on to win those fights fairly convincingly as well. So this is a tough one, because like I say, when Cody Stamann fights well and he mixes in his striking with his takedowns like he has done in his UFC career, took down Tyron Woodley with ease, took down Dukenwa with ease, outstruck Brian Caraway in their fight there. So he's a really well-rounded mixed martial artist, took down Stullen a few times. But I'm interested about his injury. Like I said, I'm going to look into that a little bit more. I see this fight being super close, and for me, I'm with picking Alejandro Perez here. If he can stop the takedowns, and then I think he will just do enough. I think he'll have enough volume to win this fight. I'm going to go a split decision win though for Turbo Perez in that one there. Light heavyweight division, Misha Cirkunov against Johnny Walker. I'm going to put my hand up straight away and say this. I'm looking for the opportunity to fade Johnny Walker. I really am. I think that he's a guy that's getting, but I still don't think he's that great a fighter. And I think he's got a little bit of a screw listening, and you can see that he's just a bit of a crazy guy, but he's getting, because he's coming through that division and the wins that he's had, he's getting a lot of hype right now. I'm not one of these ones that's going to jump on the train as quick. I think there's a lot of holes in it. I just think that he's had a couple of good matchups where he's looked really good. You cannot take that away from him. I mean, his last fight against Justin Ledet looked calm as a cucumber. Comes out there, throws I think it was a body kick, went for a high kick, and then as that pretty much the heel kind of misses the side of Ledet's head, he throws a spinning back fist, catches him, and then while Ledet's covering up in the bottom, I thought at the time, oh my god, he's kicked him, he's going to get disqualified, but no, it kind of glanced him and then delivered some massive ground and pound and won in 15 seconds. But yeah, baked with him. If he catches you in the clinch, like you've seen the Cleo fight, deadly. The guy's got some big power and is very deadly, very athletic as well. If it goes to the ground here, if Misha gets him to the ground here, I don't see any way where he gets out of the guard of Misha Cirkunov. But with Misha Cirkunov, you cannot trust this guy at all. He got hit with the 6-inch death punch from Volkan that seemed to come out of nowhere, and he got knocked out badly. I think Johnny Walker's going to come out here and just swing something wild and hit him with a big shot and put him down. But if this fight hits the ground, I think one time that Misha Cirkunov could have his way with Johnny Walker. If he can get that body lock, he's a very strong guy. I think he's got a similar height to Johnny Walker, but he's going to have to get in close to get a hold of him. And Johnny Walker, I just think, throws a lot of unorthodox strikes, big power strikes. And I think one even flicking shot would put down Misha Cirkunov. And but I am interested to see if Misha can get him to the ground, because if he can, then I think he will. He could run through Johnny Walker. And nice win last time against Pat Cummins in the first round. this is the hard fight for me to pick, but I'd rather go with someone who, it's just the Misha Cirkunov chin. I cannot trust him, especially a guy against Johnny Walker that we've seen that is just blasting fools with big shots and unorthodox shots you're not seeing. And saying that, the Johnny Walker fight against Lewis Enrique in the Dana White Contender Series, he got up from the ground there, but that's against Frankenstein, whose ground game is pretty terrible, to be honest with you. I'm going to pick Johnny Walker here. He's a guy actually I think I want to bet because I think his line's going to get close to plus money, which is a little bit. I don't think he'd. I didn't think it'd get down that low, so it might be something to look at later on in the week. And the deficiency in Misha Cirkunov's chin, so I'm going to pick Johnny Walker via a first round knockout. Featherweight division and the main fight of the prelims here. Ooh, banger! Jeremy Stephens to beat Magomedsharipov. Actually, in the last, that was some great. Like he said he was thinking about committing suicide after the Jose Aldo loss. That's scary. And that wasn't even 6 months ago. I think his coaches kind of pulled him through. Dominic Cruz pulled him through, and kind of changed his mindset. But that's a scary thing to have in your mind of doing that to yourself. So hopefully his mind's all right and he's back in here ready to get into a fight again. And I've seen people putting Jeremy down a little bit for that loss to Aldo. It was a beautiful shot that if you hit the right spot, you're in trouble. Alexei Shuk last week hit Volante with a shot. It just shuts you down. You can't do anything about it. And that's what Aldo did. He caught him with a big, powerful, clean left hook to the body, hit him in the liver, and he did all he could to try and survive, but Aldo was all over him. He actually had spots in that Aldo fight early in the first round there where he hurt Aldo, had him pushed up against the fence, was landing some good strikes. And that's something with Jeremy Stephens you've always got to be careful with. He's a big hitter with a lot of power, so you have to be careful at all times against this guy. He's one of those guys that always gets fed the kind of up-and-coming guys in the division. So you had your Doho Choi's, he had Moicano at one point, Josh Emmett, came through the Doho Choi and the Emmett fight pretty well before that loss to Jose Aldo back in the summer of last year. But a dangerous fighter, and I think this is a massive step up from anything that Zabit's ever faced before. I think it's fair to say that everybody's been impressed with Zabit since he's come into the UFC. He looks a very dangerous, well-rounded fighter. But there's definitely parts of his game that I think Jeremy Stephens could potentially capitalise on here. The Santiago fight really kind of did what he wanted to do in that fight. The Shima Moraes one I think is a good win. Shima Moraes is a really good, underestimated fighter. Tough to look good against. What I liked about that one was Mark Henry shouting with a minute to go, get the takedown, get the finish, 30 seconds later, he's got in that Anaconda choke. Nasty one there. I thought he looked great against Kyle Bochniak. I think he broke his hand in that one. And Kyle Bochniak was just a mad bastard in that fight and came forward and was like right in the face as a beat and really put it on him. And that's something that if Kyle Bochniak can do, then Zabit, then Jeremy Stephens can do that to Zabit. So that's something that you have to kind of keep in mind there because, like I say, Jeremy can take a lot and he can give a lot as well. And the Brandon Davis one, that was just a beautiful submission. What I loved about that fight was it was a short notice fight, but his takedowns, like his trips to his takedowns, it's something he had back in ACB as well. It's just his trip takedowns. And what I like about him is his range, his variety of strikes, that he moves very seamless from his striking into his grappling. Very strong. He is in a lot of aspects of his grappling. And if he can get your arms around him, if he can get his arms around you, then he is really hard to get off, and he can pull out a lot of. I mean, he caught that modified knee bar as well against Brandon Davis. So the guy's very kind of opportunistic on the ground and looks for some different stuff. I just see Zabit picking at range a little bit, picking his shots. I think he could hit a couple of spinning shots on. I like his spinning back kick. His spinning back kick is so seamless, so quick, so. He doesn't telegraph it. It's just a nice, clean spin. He hits you with a shot. So many good qualities, but he's still relatively unproven. And this is a big jump up here. against Jeremy Stephens, who's been in the UFC for God knows how long, but he's had so many fights in the UFC, and he's a tough guy. If he comes through this one here, then we'll see what he is all about. I'm picking him. I think he's just got too many options. I think his length and his size is a little bit too much for Jeremy Stephens. Would it surprise me if Jeremy caught him and knocked him out or won this fight? Not particularly, no. I think Jeremy Stephens is a really good fighter, but I feel more confident in picking Zabit. I think he's got more skills in his tools, and I think that will show in this fight here. Potential submission, I'll go decision though. So Zabit for the W there. Time to move on to the main card. Cody Garbrandt, Pedro Munhoz. A lot of kind of love between these two. If you watch the the press conference to promote UFC 235, there was a lot of kind of nice things being said, and maybe that's a little bit different from Cody, considering he came off the TJ fights. He was spitting a lot of venom in that one, and he got his ass beaten those fights. And the one thing, he had his moments in the first fight, but you've seen what was wrong with Cody Garbrandt in the second fight. The guy, he's got all the skills in the world, but it's that there. And there's aspects of that fight there where TJ hits him with a shot and he has to respond back, and he's wide open. And not only once, I think it was one or two times where he was trying to get that shot back and get hit with a bigger, harder shot, but he just had to get that shot back and wasn't patient enough, and ultimately paid the ultimate price and got his ass beat and got knocked out in the first against TJ, which is going to hurt someone like Cody with all the backstory with them too. But I've seen people writing off Cody Garbrandt, he's chinny, he's this, he's that. He get hit with a guy against one of the best bantamweights of all time, if not the best bantamweight. But when this guy turns up and he puts on a performance and he's got his head right, like the Dominic Cruz fight, this guy is absolutely one of the best fighters, I think, in that division. But he has to cover that chin. He can't be leaving his chin exposed because there's so many big hitters. There's Moraes, there's Lineker, Peter Yan's coming through, some big punchers and some good fighters there that he's going to have to start knocking some of these guys off if he wants to get back up to a title shot, depending who has the belt. It could be Moraes, whatever. So it's interesting to see. I think he's got a good matchup coming back here against Munhoz. Munhoz is a tough guy, though. And he looks like he's in the best spot of his life. Kind of American top team, had a really good 2018 after the initial loss to John Dodson, which was close. Dismantled Brett Johns. Brett Johns really stayed in that fight just due to his heart. I thought that Pedro hit him with a lot of shots and really hurt him. Brian Caraway, like stopping that guy in the first round, that's a big feather in your cap, I think. Beautiful punches. As always, I say in these breakdowns of Pedro Munhoz, if he's got a slight opportunity to get a body limb, get your neck, you're in trouble. He's got that grip strength, and he's got that. He always just seems to find those perfect submissions when he needs to, like the Rob Font fight, Scoggins fight. He just needs one opportunity to get that grip in, and the strength that he has in those chokes is crazy. When you look at it standing, I think the more crisp, cleaner, varied striker is definitely Cody with his boxing. Very fast. Like you can see that the guy's got a lot of power, and that comes from the speed that he has in his hands. But he needs to fight smart, because if he doesn't, and he goes out there and he berserks like he does sometimes, then again he's going to get caught, because there are so many good fighters in that division that you will be exposed if you don't change it up a little bit. So I'm interested to see how he does here. So yeah, initially my lean was kind of Pedro Munhoz in this, and as the kind of fight weeks came closer, I went back to Cody Garbrandt. I think he's just got the faster, more fluent hands. He could hurt Pedro with those fast, fluent hands. But it's a tough fight, I think, to come back after those two losses. He has to re-establish as a guy in that division. It's a tough fight there. So I'll go Cody Garbrandt to win via a 30-27 decision in that one there. Moving on, Tecia Torres against Welli Zhang. Good fight. Really good fight. I'm looking forward to seeing the step up for Welli Zhang here. After 2 initial fights in the UFC with an 18-1 record, came into the UFC against Daniel Taylor. Looked good in that fight, looked strong. She's a big girl for that division. She looks very strong. She looks very dangerous as well. Her striking is very complete. I think her defense is a little bit lacking. She got hit with some shots in that one there that, against some of the other people, maybe your Andrades or your Jacek could capitalise on, especially like with Jacek with her speed, and Andrade with her power. But that's the upper echelon of that division. And Tecia Torres is really just she's always going to be one of those fighters that's going to be an outside looking in of the big fights, big fighters in that division. But she's super tough and she's hard to look good against. She only loses to the kind of best girls. But what I like for Welli Zhang in this fight here is that she's going to want to try and fight on the outside. And when she comes in, she's going to have to engage with Welli Zhang, and I think she could end up eating a big shot. And I just don't see her winning in the judges' scorecard by doing that. I think that fighting on the outside and picking shots, I think that the volume from Zhang will be too much. Super, super strong. You've seen like her takedown against Daniel Taylor, like she got there and she just mauled her, threw it at the ground. Then Jessica Aguilar, she absolutely beat the ass of Jessica Aguilar in that fight and really blooded her up, showing she's got a lot of skills on the ground, very kind of dominant top position girl. She readjusted that triangle choke beautifully and then got the straight arm bar on it. And it looks a very, very dangerous fighter in that division. A lot of experience now. I know her early experience before the UFC wasn't great, but it's experience nonetheless. She's had a lot of fight time. She's had a lot of finishes. Very, very confident fighter. And initially I was on I don't think she's going to take her down. If she does, I don't think she's going to keep her there. I think she's definitely the stronger fighter. I like the fact that Torres has went back to American Top Team. I think that's only going to be more beneficial for her, being out there back to her original home and with some of the girls there that she's already faced, like Jacek there, so she'll be working with her, I'm sure, or she has been. I've seen some of the pictures there, so Welli Zhang for me is just going to have to be the pick there. But it's a big step up from Aguilar and Daniel Taylor to Tecia Torres, so Tecia could maybe make it close. I just see Welli Zhang having too much for her, hurting her with some shots and having too much output for her. So I'm actually going to go for Welli Zhang to maybe finish her via stoppage. I'll go Welli Zhang in that one. Moving on, we've got Ben Askren making his UFC debut against the ruthless Robbie Lawler, who's making his comeback after some big knee surgery there. And I am very interested to see Ben Askren in the UFC. Both guys have been off a similar amount of time. If you don't know who Ben Askren is, if you're just a UFC shill and you've never watched outside of the UFC, he's an undefeated fighter and one of the best wrestlers there is out in the sport, without a shadow of a doubt. Just a really, really good wrestler, good grappler. And if the guy gets his hands on you, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Just put it that way. If he gets you to the ground, he's not going to lose. He's not going to lose rounds. He's going to win. I think if he gets Robbie down one time, I think he'll automatically win rounds. So obviously, you know what Robbie has to do. Robbie has to throw them hands, which he is known for. I actually think Robbie Lawler's got a really good sprawl. I remember what fight was it? The Josh Koscheck one. A lot of people were writing him off in that one there, and because of the wrestling aspect. And I thought he did well in situations with Josh Koscheck there to find his way back to his feet. And but just the wrestling of Ben Askren is crazy. And I've seen people say that he's beat nobody and he's did this and he's did that, which is BS, because he's beat Douglas Lima, who's a great fighter, who'd be a top 10 guy in the UFC if he was ever there. He beat Andrei Koreshkov. Jay Heron beat easily. He's a guy that had a little bit of decent run back in the day. Lyman Good, who's in the UFC, dominated. This guy just dominates guys. He went over, he won one FC, dominated guys with ease over there. But when you look at him, he's like, I think he's in his mid-30s. He's never going to fight Tyron Woodley if Woodley's got the belt there, because those guys are main training partners. They're guys that have always been very, very close in the MMA kind of game, and they've been working together for this fight here. It's all about, can Robbie put the hands on him? And I'm struggling to see it. I just think this guy, one time, if he gets you down, I just don't see getting back up. And he finds his ways to get him mount and work on you. And I just struggle to see it here. Like I say, Robbie's got a good sprawl game, but is this going to be the Robbie? I actually thought, what was his last fight? Dos Anjos. I thought he looked a little bit slow. Looked a little bit kind of old in that fight, and he took a lot of damage in that fight. I struggle to see him stopping takedowns here. And for that, I'm going to have to pick Ben Askren. Who would I like to see win more? Probably Robbie. I think a majority of people would say that, but I'm interested to see Ben Askren in the UFC because I think he's going to get some big fights. He's getting a former champion straight off the bat, and he's going to get big fights after this. We'll see where he is in that division and what's going to happen going forward. But I've got Ben Askren via UD there. I just think it's a good fight for him to come into the UFC to. Moving on, one of our two big fights on the card here. Tyron Woodley against Kamaru Usman, who's making his attempt at the belt here. And I've struggled with this one. I'm really struggling with this one because I've said for the longest time I think Kamaru Usman is a champion in weight in this division. But I love what Tyron Woodley does to win fights. He will do anything he has to do to change up the style of the fight just to win the fight, and he doesn't care what the fans think. He will just do what he has to do to win fights, and I think you commend him for it. And some people won't. Some Woodley, for some reason, I like Tyron Woodley a lot. I think he's a good champion. Kind of stands up for himself. I think there's a whole Dana thing that he's always talking about him, so he takes a lot of shit through that. But especially like, he's one of the best welterweight champions we've ever got outside your two big ones, which is obviously GSP, who retired last week. I think we'll see him back at some point. And who else? Matt Hughes. He's if he keeps on winning fights, he's definitely going to put himself in there. And good race. Initially, right, my initial lean in this fight straight off was Kamaru Usman. And I don't think he's a bad bet, honestly. But my initial lean was with Kamaru until a couple of weeks ago. And I just think that Tyron Woodley might be the one performance where Tyron might big brother him a little bit. But the one thing that does scare me is that he gets backed up in the fence, and Kamaru is a very, very good pressure fighter. We've seen that Dos Anjos could not get his back off the cage, and Woodley, like we've seen in the past, can back up in the cage. But what he does as well is he throws like a little feint left and throws that big overhand right, and he catches everybody with it. He caught Darren Till with it in the last fight there. He caught Josh Koscheck with it. He caught Wonderboy with it. So this guy is dangerous when his back is against the fence. So you always have to be careful with that. My eye dropped. I want to say he dropped him with that shot as well as he was coming in. So yeah, super dangerous fight. I'm trying to think who's got the wrestling advantage here. I think that Woodley honestly has the wrestling advantage, but I think the pressure that Usman could put on him could maybe tell in him in this fight here, because he backs people up and he doesn't let them rest. He puts out a really good output for 15 to 25 minutes like we've seen. But I don't know. I just think that Woodley's going to catch him with a shot and maybe knock him out. As he's coming forward, as he's trying to pressure, I think that Woodley could hurt him. I don't think I've got a really good read in this fight, honestly. I think that my initial lean, because I've thought for so long that Usman is definitely going to win the belt, it's kind of stuck in my head, and I'm still trying to come to terms with how he does it in this fight. And you can definitely see Dos Anjos. He backed Dos Anjos up in that fight and absolutely annihilated him with a lot of strikes, a lot of output, but also mixed in with a lot of takedowns. He got 12 takedowns in that fight, advanced position on numerous occasions. Emil Mek took him down 8 times, and there was that whole, I was only at 33%, But guy's got power as well, so he has to be careful. I'm going to pick Tyron Woodley, so I'm actually going to pick him via knockout. I think as he's pressuring forward, I think Tyron hits him with a big shot and knocks him out. But honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing Usman actually winning this fight, just to kind of freshen up the division a little bit. Not that Woodley's, like I say, not that he's boring, because I actually like his fights. I like how strategic he is in his fights and how he changes his game up to win certain fights. But maybe a bit of new fresh blood in that division wouldn't be a bad thing. I'm going to pick Tyron Woodley. I'm going to pick him via knockout. 3rd or 4th round. If not, I think I can see it being close on the decision there. But yeah, I'll go T-Wood. In the main event of the night, we've got Jon Jones defending his UFC light heavyweight title again against Anthony Smith. And this is just interesting for the fact that he's beat all these champions and he's beat great fighters like the DC and Gustafsson and back in the day Rampage and Shogun and Rashad and Vitor and all those other people that he's beat, Glover Teixeira. And you've got the guy here who's probably the biggest underdog that he's maybe ever faced, but I've just got... It'd be kind of crazy that this guy maybe comes out here and hands Jon Jones that loss in the UFC that a lot of people say, oh, it's coming. I don't think it's coming anytime soon. I'm not going to pick Anthony Smith here. But what I like about Anthony Smith and listening to him, he's like, he doesn't care about Jon Jones. And I love his kind of bulletproof mindset. Go in there and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. It's a different thing saying it and a totally different thing doing it. And I just struggle to see him doing it because Jon Jones is such a nasty fighter in so many aspects of the game. And he's so good at breaking fights down and breaking fighters down. Like, I know the Gustafsson second fight back at the end of December, it wasn't a great fight, but he dismantled anything. What's the word I'm looking for? Disrupted anything that Alexander Gustafsson did in that fight, and he hurts guys. The guy's vicious, like super vicious. He tries to hurt you with the oblique kicks, when he was trying to wreck the arm of Glover Teixeira when he had the reap under there and tried to pull out through his shoulder. The guy's nasty, and you see once this guy gets you to the ground, he is super nasty with the leverage that he's got with his ground and pound. His submission skills, I think, he's got some, because of the leverage that he's got a lot of options down there. And I don't see where Anthony Smith wins this fight at all. I just don't see any aspect, unless he catches him with a shot. And I think that's what he has to do. Nobody in your right mind would have given Anthony Smith a title shot ever. Ever, ever, ever. Take the opportunity, just come out there and go balls to the wall and just try and take this guy's head off. If I was in his position, I'd maybe try and do that. Obviously, Anthony Smith's maybe going to do something different, but if he comes out there, gives it a go, you never know what's going to happen. I just see Jon Jones dismantling this guy easily. Smith's came into the 205 division, beat Shogun, beat Rashad. In 2018, those wins don't really mean much to me. Beat Volkan. A lot of people were heavy on Volkan. I like Smith in that fight. I bet him in that fight. Took a lot of damage. Came through though, persevered, and got the win there. Yeah, Jon Jones for me. I think I'd be surprised if this doesn't end in the 1st or 2nd round. On the ground, he would school on Anthony Smith. I think on the ground, on the feet, he's always got that reach advantage that he uses to his advantage very well with oblique kicks, body kicks, leg kicks. Throws a lot of kicks actually, Jon Jones. He's started to mix in a lot of the high kicks recently as well. I'll pick Jon Jones to win. I'll go 1st round submission for Anthony Smith, for Jon Jones against Anthony Smith there. So that's my picks for UFC 235. Appreciate the support as always. Forgot to say at the start, like, comment, subscribe, and let's see if I can get myself up to 3,000 followers by the end of this year. That is my goal, making a good steady start to the year. So just help me out if you can. Leave comments down below. I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. Disagreements as well. I'm getting a lot of people that disagree with me at the minute, which is always nice to kind of go back and forward on. Try and stay respectful about it, though. But like I say, you guys, the support you guys give me is awesome. So keep that up. And like I say, if you don't agree with me, let me know what you think. That's why I like people. I like doing these videos to see what different opinions people have, because you win some, you lose some. I'll be back next week for Derek Lewis against GDS, UFC Wichita. Not the best card. I think I like the main event, though. Until next week, I'll see everybody very, very soon, and enjoy UFC 235 when it comes round.